Welcome to the Misfit One Lifestyles with Elizabeth Colin. She will awaken and connect with your Misfit One. Are you tired of the ups and downs in your life? Are you ready to live a healthy lifestyle once and for all? We are talking about all aspects of your life. Being fit is not just physical, it's also your mind and soul. Learn how to take steps in your life to move towards your goals. Elizabeth's goal is for everyone listening to the sound of her voice to get fit. Let's get focused, let's get intentional, and let's transform. Now here's your host, Elizabeth Colin.
Hey guys, welcome to another segment of Misfit One Lifestyles with your girl, Elizabeth Colin, also known as Misfit One. And today's guest is someone we all know. Oh, we should. Listen, he's following in John Lewis's footsteps, and that's some huge footsteps, right? Never let anyone, any person, or any force dampen, dim, or diminish your light. That's coming from John Lewis himself. And our guest, Dr. Patrick Graham, is someone who's walking that walk. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I am well. Listen, you are someone that is out there making some changes in this crazy world. First of all, tell everybody, who you are.
Well, I've been what you would call a justice, equity, diversity, inclusion practitioner all my life, all my career, what I call a JetI. So
I love it.
Yeah, so I'm big into the force. I believe that we are in a transformative moment, and I'm a true believer in the force of change. And so, I'm from Long Island originally, where my first sort of stint as a JetI actually was the Martin Luther King Center in New York, a community center that was named after him and dedicated by him on his tour of New York. So it was a special place for me. I grew up there. And so I've been on that road ever since. I'm also a proud dad, and I'm going to tell you the other thing that most people don't know, I love the outdoors.
What?
Always. I was even thinking about, as I was telling you before we came on, I was going to say, I'd like to do this outside.
Don't let me stop you. Don't let me stop you from being great.
I love the outdoors.
What do you love about the outdoors?
I think the outdoors calm me. It's a time when I can commune with God too at the same time. So, I like to be on trails or somewhere that seems far away, even if it's not.
Right.
Like the place where nobody knows your name.
I love it. Have you ever heard of a forest bath? Those are really big in Asian countries.
No, you have to tell me about that.
Let me school you on a little something, because talking about outside, that is me. I love it. And a forest bath is where you could do it with a group of people or by yourself, but you tend to be silent when you're doing it, and you want to engage all 5 of your senses, right? So you want to go on your trails, wherever you go, you want to make sure you are feeling things, right? Is it the wind blowing? Do you feel the sun? Or do you feel cold? The feeling of it. What do you see? Do you see trees, cars, dogs, cats? You put all your senses. What do you hear? The birds chirping, the wind blowing through the leaves. It's a way you get all of your senses. And also, what do you taste? Is it your food from the morning? Did you have coffee, tea, whatever? But when you take a bath in the forest is when you use all 5 of your senses and really immerse yourself in the outside. And I love it.
Yeah, I just, as you were saying, I was just thinking about this past weekend. I went to a trail that I sometimes frequent here in Richmond, but it's right on the James River. And so it used to be one of the second largest slave ports in the nation.
Wow.
So when you think about that type of history, or when I go to the White Rafting Center there in Charlotte, that Catawba was frequented by Native people. So it's like you start thinking about those who had traveled there already before you.
That is so so important to have that mindset of, who walked this trail before me. I've never been to the Whitewater. I've never been there. Everybody talk about it, and I need to go because I do love outside. And but it's so important wherever we have walked. This is not the first feet that ever touched this trail. Right. We following in the feet of our ancestors, and you not only follow in the feet of our ancestors, you are trying to lead for the next generation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, yeah, a lot of stuff that I'm involved in right now is really about how do we develop our human assets. So whether it's putting together, eviction prevention and home ownership models, which I've done here in Richmond or in Charlotte, whether it was putting together workforce initiatives that take people who normally weren't part of our economy and introduce them to it in a way that people acknowledge that they're actually assets.
Right.
And so I think that's part of the issue that I see across the board, that we tend to leave people out because we forgot to view the actual potential that they really are. And I think that in many ways it's harmed the United States in terms of our competitiveness across the globe because we've suppressed too many of our human assets, particularly Black and brown people. Particularly Black and brown people. And we have examples of that. I was teaching a history class on civil rights, and I once told someone that when you look at places like Mississippi or Louisiana, et cetera, during the whole 20th century, they ranked lowest in economics and education. And so people say, why do you think that is? I said, it's because they had large Black populations that they suppressed. I said, so it was so much of their human capital that when they suppressed them, they suppressed themselves.
Wow. That is so profound, because I always say that, especially with the past election. I mean, Louisiana, are you kidding me? It was like, it made us so angry that we said, we're not going there anymore. Like, we used to go to New Orleans. I'm Creole. My family is from there. My maiden name is Cormier. So I'm like, now I'm not even going there anymore. That's just how mad I was. But when you put it the way you said it, it makes sense.
Yeah. It really does. At that point, lately I've been, obviously doing a lot of talk shows, radio around justice reform. And one of the things I've recently brought up was the notion of false accusations that so many Black men now are experiencing, that people don't realize statistics. And when you talk that upwards of close to 15% of now all criminal cases may be false accusation cases, that's a lot.
That's a hell of a lot.
Yeah, and it's dangerous.
But what I'm thinking about, though, Patrick, is the fact of now we can have that number. We can have a statistics. It's been happening all along, but nobody cared. It was like, oh, well, he must have done it. And it's so scary that this moment, this time is, we still have to fight for justice and equality. And why is it so important for us to continue on that fight? What is so important about it? Because the younger generations think we're all equal, right? At first, until this whole uproar happened. It's like, why y'all tripping? We don't have to do that anymore. But now they're seeing it. Yeah. Okay.
Well, what's interesting about that is when I think about Black people in particular, we have been the gate crashers for democracy for some time now. And this is what I mean by that. every time that Black people have launched movements for some type of either freedom or equity, others began to walk through those same doors. So, for example, during Reconstruction, we advocated as former slaves for education system. The Freedmen Bureau and others established, right, a public education system that now poor whites could attend.
Yep.
Civil rights, I just use as an example. We launched this new transformative movement, gay liberation rights, a new women's movement, channel movement. All of these did now begin to come and arise from what we've done. Black Lives Matter, Me Too, come out of actually Black suffering. And what happens? We begin to have these other conversations about gender equity as well as the rights of others. You know, the anti-Asian hate movement is really still a spawn of what you've seen in Black Lives Matter, except there's one thing that's different, is that oftentimes the doors that we have opened for others, we don't always get to fully walk through ourselves.
Say it, because you know what's so crazy is like the 15th Amendment, and when they was doing it for the women's right, the women's right to vote, it wasn't us who did it first. They were able to get their rights, and then, but we opened the doors with that. That was we thought we had made it. We were going to be equal. We were going to walk hand in hand, and then they was like, nope.
No, the 13th Amendment, when it started, even before the 15th, right, was about, you know, what it was to be a citizen.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And so that opened the door for that conversation even more, particularly for white women. I think what's interesting is, though, that you have some white women who understand this, and then you have a large portion that does not. You know, when you talk about above 55% voting for Trump, for example, despite some of the things that he said, it says also that what many white women, unfortunately, do is they still go to their comfort zone in terms of supporting some of these sort of patriarchal ways of thinking, because it also helps their economic stance, their social position. And so therefore, all morality and ethics become secondary.
Yeah, that to me, you know, you can't see me, but I grab my head because it literally makes my head hurt. This was a subject that many of my friends and I have spoken on several times. And a lot of times they were raised that their husband knows best. And so if my husband say it's so it shall be. Which is like, seriously? I mean, I want to be like that. I want to be like that. But at some point you have to say, what about me? What about my justice? And the stuff that's going on now about, you know, how we can't even make our own choices about abortion. And it's just mind blowing.
Yeah. Well, if you don't have a uterus, you shouldn't be commenting on that.
Can you say that again for me? Can you say it for the people in the back?
If you don't have a uterus, you shouldn't be commenting on that. I don't, that's something that I've never got involved with, because I realize the situations, they're all different.
Correct.
So I understand that people make choices sometimes with the best information they can.
You know, and if you don't have it, you shouldn't even be talking about it. That's the end of that. That's period. And makes perfect sense to me, but obviously not to everyone else. But there's so many other things, that we have to really focus on. And there's like 2 or 3 issues that we have to address to move forward as a nation. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think there's one. I definitely think still that we have to focus a lot on economic justice. I think that economic justice is a key to a lot of things that we've been dealing with.
Can you break that down, though? Tell everybody what you mean when you say economic justice.
So when I think about economic justice, I'm talking about systems that actually have either in the past prohibited people, particularly people of color, from actually entering into our economic system, also in terms of even the education and understanding how economics work. And most important, providing an avenue for them to thrive now, since by 2044, we'll represent the majority of this country. So that's also an issue. And consumers, entrepreneurs, others are not found, they're created. And we have to actually be in the creation business. One of the things I talk a lot about, for example, is that we know that all the way up to 68, over 98% of all loans for housing, for example, through our federal government went to white people. We excluded African Americans from that, and a lot of our wealth has been built off of that.
Yes.
That's an example of where I would say, in my policy, that people who are descendants of not just slaves, but those who even can show direct ascendancy from soldiers, for example, who weren't given the loans that they should have been given, like they gave others, such as white soldiers, right? I would say that those people should get 1% loans on a mortgage as a way to actually redo.
I like that.
It's those type of things that I think are going to be important, because if you build something like a system that discriminates, right, and at that point, we're talking about real serious redlining, then it's up to you to dismantle it.
Right. Right. You know what's crazy is, and I can't believe I'm saying this right now, but I'm gonna speak the truth. This is the truth. We recently moved to a new home. We've been here probably 2 months, if that. And we were just so excited. And you know how you look at the demographics in that area? Mm-hmm. Guess how many Blacks? Guess what percentage?
How many?
0.
I can believe that.
I couldn't.
I can't.
0? And it was 0.8 Hispanic, 0 Black. And I'm not living in the outskirts. We moved on a lake. We live in Lake Norman on the lake. 0. What year is this?
2021. And I think that what you're experiencing is that form of economic justice right there, right? That, here you have these properties that, very few can access. And I think that part of it is obviously, income disparities and other things too.
Yes.
But I think that we have been very purposeful about segregation. And it actually has harmed us. And I'll give you a perfect example. When we had the Brown versus Board education decision, we went on this sort of mission, right, to desegregate schools. But that also meant that in some ways you have to start desegregating communities. We started to see a little bit of progress in that. By 1990, we ranked 5th in the world in education and health.
Wow.
During the 90s, though, we dismantled every one of our most strategic anti-segregation laws. And by the time we hit the mid-2000s, we were more segregated than we were at the start of Brown versus Board. And not only that, we now rank 27th in education and in health. So what that shows you is that when you exclude, when you start to segregate and exclude, it harms us as a whole. It's just very clear as day. I called it, in an article, I called it creative suppression. So it was a way to actually stop creatives in Black and brown communities from really being able to contribute and really have access to the proper resources to actually make our nation better. Wow. And we paid the price for it.
Yeah, and that's a heavy price. That's a heavy price to pay. And what is another thing? One of them is economic injustice.
I think the other is actually our own mental and social health.
Bam.
This takes a mental toll on you. And if you don't know how to deal with that, and if we don't really deal with that issue as a crisis, then I think that it does lead to more harm. I like the fact that you misfit one, and I think of that as both in and out.
It is.
And it is. I feel much better if I exercise in the morning like I would normally do on a schedule, right? It does something for my day. It helps relieve some stress, other things. But I can imagine, particularly if you look at what we went through in this pandemic, you look at some of the actual social movements during this pandemic, the stress levels. I've seen friends lose jobs and everything else, not because of their ability, because of the literal stress that was there.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the issues that we have to address.
You are so right. I have a course that I teach. It's called Creating Healthy Habits. And in that course, we definitely go in deep about self-responsibility and self-love and mental care, because it's all from the inside out, right? A lot of time when people think of fit, they think I'm talking about physical. But, I say I want everybody to be fit, focused, intentional, and transforming. That's what I mean. And what's crazy about it is we as a culture focus on our outside, and that's what's important, is outside. And we were taught that it's weak or shameful to talk to someone about issues or anything that's going on. If you can't handle it yourself, you can't go to a therapist, that don't do that. And it's sad. We're changing. It's changing, but it used to be very taboo, not to go to a therapist, or they would use it against you, right? You crazy, you need help. You need to go to a therapist. You crazy, and a lot of times you're like, yeah, you are too. Like, we need to go to therapy, And I love the fact that you said that, because coming from you and what you see every day and what you're dealing with every day, mental health really plays a huge, huge part.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I just did a training for a group of people in a public housing authority here in Richmond around core values. And actually for them to develop their own core values and use those to help modify their behavior as they interact with community. And in that, I found so many discussions about the mental strain, right, of one, for them being in poverty, for one.
Right.
Two, but the racial inequities obviously compounding it. And then three, just the isolation of the environment. I mean, we're talking about people who in this whole land of trees, Virginia, for example, North Carolina, full of trees, but you create these concrete deserts called public housing, right?
Yeah.
That we leave people in total isolation. And so I just don't think it's mentally healthy at all.
Right. It's not. And studies have shown that trees actually do calm you. I am from California. I will hug a tree. I am a tree hugger. Everybody think I'm crazy, but listen, I feel good. I mean, if you have not hugged a tree, you ain't missing out on some stuff, right? And what's funny is I remember I was in California and I had a surgery. I was sick or something, and I had to walk. I wanted to walk. I didn't have to, but I wanted to get out in the air, because I truly believe if I'm sick or anything, if I get outside, I will feel better. I don't know why, but I'm like, I'm the one that's going to try to crawl outside. Like, just let me feel the air. Let me put my feet on the ground. I will feel better. And I had this huge tree, and my daughter was walking with me. And I was thinking, I'm not going to make it. I am not going to make it, but I'm going to just I'm not. And I got to this tree, Patrick, I held on to it, and it was a big, huge, I couldn't even put my arms around it, but I'm like holding on to it. My daughter was like, Ma, you look so crazy. It was so funny. I was like, you look so crazy. I said, but I feel so good. Like, it really is. If it's so good for the soul
Yes.
because it's so strong and so solid, and it has been there through so much, and it will be there, and it's so important to do that. And what you was talking about earlier is how you start your day. Can you share with us a little bit about how you start your day?
So on a normal day, I would like to start with a little bit of coffee when I get up. And that's actually like French press. So since I've discovered French press with my significant other, it's like, well, I thought it was hardy-tardy, but I found out there's really nothing to it.
I know, but
what you do is you get this strainer and you basically, putting the coffee grinds in, you're filling it up with hot water, and the strainer sort of straining it. Right. And, so I'm like, all this time I thought there was some process that went on behind somewhere.
Right.
Hated that. But, it turns out I'm like, this is actually just a little bit more work. But I like it.
Yeah,
so I start off with that, and then what I do is I shave my face and head and then try to go to the gym or to run.
Okay.
I do that shaving face. It's just a way to say that I've arrived and I'm here. I don't actually get moving 90+% of the time without doing that.
Wow, that is so interesting. So the process of shaving your face and head is a way of you saying, like, I'm here, it's time to go?
Yeah, it's my wake up. No matter how tired I'm feeling, whatever. Sometimes I may have had a long day.
Right.
No, that's it. I mean, it's part of the deal.
I love that. Now, that is definitely a new one for me. I've heard some stuff. I've heard.
I shave my head, too, while not looking. I can walk around the house.
No, you can't.
I can. And I do all the time.
That is crazy.
I make coffee while I'm shaving my head. And that's honest.
I love that, because what's so great about this and doing this is that everybody have their own process. Everybody has something that's unique to them that makes them who they are and get them on their way. Now, listen, I know you said you have very long days. How do you keep that work-life balance?
I'll be honest, lately I haven't been doing a good job at it. Right. But occasionally I would just say, break down, and I would say I need to either just lay down, chill out, and like watch garbage TV or something.
What's garbage TV? Don't just skip over that. Let's go to what's garbage TV? Come on.
Yeah, I'll admit, Atlanta Housewives. I do like also to catch up on certain shows, like, Snowfall is one of my favorite on FX. And
I love Snowfall. I got to interview the whole cast. They are amazing. And
amazing, that brother though with the English accent.
Yes.
And he's trained. I think he said Dub C actually trained him.
Yeah,
what I understand.
What's so crazy is I didn't know the show at all. I got assigned it, for work. So I was like, all right, let me look at it. And the first one, I'm like, oh, here we go again. It's always the same old stuff from the first episode. By the second episode, I'm like, what's going on? Like, I kept now I am addicted, and it blew my mind because I'm a country girl. Like, I didn't live in the cities. I didn't know any of this. Like, this was a whole new world to me. And I learned so much from it because, I'm country as country. Like, I am the original redneck chick, right? Like, I knew nothing about it. And of course, we see it on TV and bits and parts. Oh, you hear somebody say it. But for the way they broke it down, for you guys who have not seen it, get on it because they broke it down. Am I lying?
They break down how the crack epidemic starts.
Yes.
There's a lot of historical accuracy, though some of this is fiction.
Right.
There's some reality to it.
Right.
And, that's both interesting, actually can make you angry at the same time when you really think about it.
Listen, I had to hit pause because I'm thinking, because I want to know this for real, like this stuff really, like the CIA was really going in like that, like was they, and it was
It
crazy.
brings me back. I mean, I grew up in New York, in a place called Long Beach, right near Far Rockaway, Queens. And obviously coming up in the 80s, I remember as a boy, I had a crush on an older girl. She was a Puerto Rican sister because at the time, African Americans, Puerto Ricans, we all lived in the same neighborhoods at that point.
Right.
And but I remember like seeing her for the first time high on crack.
No.
You know, and of course she's like, might have been at that time 12, 13 years old. I'm some little kid. Right? And I remember the horror of seeing the zombie walk, you know, at about 5, 6 in the morning. Because at the time as a kid, I worked also when I turned about 14, I remember seeing her. I worked as a tide liner for a beach when I was a kid in the summer.
How cool is that?
Yeah, well, it's not that cool because what you really do is you scoop seaweed for about 3 miles straight into a payloader that follows you the whole way. It wasn't glamorous, but
hey, you had a job. You was a working man. You was a working man.
But I remember like going to work because a lot of times those folks, they just didn't sleep. And I remember the first time I saw her, and it, I just was devastated because I really could tell this woman who was, you know, I'm looking at you now, you're a beautiful woman. I can see those just transforming that person into someone that they don't recognize themselves. And I can remember even her trying to hold some slight dignity as she walked.
Right.
But it's hard to hold on to that when you're in that condition. Terrible drug.
Look, that gave me goosebumps because it's so crazy is I wasn't exposed to that, right? I didn't know it. I didn't see it. Country. I'm country. But I do remember this one lady driving her car. I thought she was so beautiful. And I probably was about 6th grade, and I was standing at the bus stop, and I waved at her like, hey, had no idea who she was, but she was a sister, you know, a Black woman, nice car. She looked like she was always dressed. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to be like her when I grow up. And I would wave wave hard, like, hey. And she would always wave, you know. I know she was thinking like, who is this kid? And then one day she was coming and she had a cigarette hanging out of her mouth. Patrick, to me, that could have been crack because I was like, ugh. And she waved at me and I was like, I never. Isn't that crazy? The little thing. Now, it wasn't crack, but it was a cigarette that was hanging out of her mouth. And I never, ever looked at her the same. So I can only imagine the fact with crack.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people could imagine that. So I saw those things, and it's you know, so it would lead me actually to the third thing I think is most important is our talent.
Talk to us about it.
Education, how we develop our new entrepreneurs, our new workforce, how we actually overall treat that talent as we're trying to develop it. I think it's the one thing that we have not done our best with, even though we have some of the most creative talent in the world.
Yeah.
And so I would say if after economic development, your health would definitely be how we develop talent. And I look at it as connected to both of those in many ways. And unfortunately, in my line of work, it's about seeing that talent and really trying to nurture it. But at the same time, I know that I also, policy-wise, have to deal with systems in the way that we do things that prohibit us from doing that well. And so when I look at my son, for example, getting ready to graduate and go off to college, you know, I thought a lot about how if his mother and I were not there in a way that we knew we had to combat some of these systems. And so we actually made efforts to do so.
Right.
If I left it totally up to them, forget about it.
Scary.
And it's scary because part of it too is we're in an age, particularly with technology, where there's so many distractions, so many other things that actually have more time with your kids, that have more time with our talent than we do. And so whatever you have to do, it's like you have to do it twice as good. Because if you only have 3 hours a day with them and the rest of the world has, 10 or 12.
12, yeah.
That's a tough balancing act, right? So, and I'll just say this, that when I knew that we had done the right thing is actually when he was already in middle school. And I'm sitting there, I meet him and some of his friends for lunch. And they say, hey, Dadgie, right? Dadgie. So when my son was 2, my oldest, he couldn't say daddy, right? So he said Dadgie. The next thing you know, my oldest daughter, her friends, everyone, it caught on, so it became a nickname.
Oh my gosh.
I love it. To the neighborhood, hey, Dadgie, So I come in and I didn't know this had happened. So I said, so where y'all, how was school today? And so they're all telling me, and I look at him and I said, oh, so I said, you was there with the fellas? And one of them said, well, nah, he's not in our class anymore. And I said, you're not in his class anymore. I said, what happened? And he says, well, he told the teacher because we were all friends that he didn't want the drama in class. So he asked to be switched out.
That is awesome.
That we made it.
Wow.
He made that decision on his own as a 13-year-old. And
that's what I'm talking about.
I'm good.
Yeah, because if you could be, look, he had that self-awareness right there. Like, yeah, this is not going to be good if I stay in here. No, well, congratulations, Dadgie. That is awesome. Listen, we can talk all day, but I want to let the people know where they can find you. You do a lot of work with justice, equality, workforce, and you have so many things going on. You've got books. Tell them about your books. How can they stay connected with you? Just let the people know.
Yeah, well, you can always reach me. My handle on Instagram is Dr. P. Graham. On Twitter is Dr. Patrick Graham. And, of course, Facebook is Patrick Graham. Also, I just leave my email because I have a lot of people who contact me that way. It's drpatrickcgraham@gmail.com. Soon, website will be up, highlighting some of our work. It's going to be called Dr. Patrick Graham and Friends. And what I'll be doing is talking to people like you about how they see opportunities to develop good talent in the world.
I love it. I love it. I mean, you are really doing your part and we are proud of you. I mean, we run across each other. For those who don't know, Dr. Patrick and I see each other at events, right? Martin Luther King thing or some Black event. We usually run across each other in that way. And every time I see you, my husband and I go, we proud of him, man. Look at him doing this thing and just keep up the good work. I love your saying that you have on your email. Our legacy depends on what we have done for others. And right now, brother, your legacy is strong. Keep up the good work.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Until next time, you guys, stay fit.